This is Nick from Boston, and this is the Katie Black Show.
What's up?
Hello.
What's up? And you can cuss, Matt. You don't have to, but.
Thank fucking God.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to Katie Black Show. This is an episode only found on YouTube. And today I have with me.
Matt Fischer. Hi, I didn't know you wanted me to say my name.
Yes, Matt Fischer. Okay, so background. Matt, how do we know each other?
You were the fourth student that I met in college.
Really?
Yeah, first person I ever met was Charlie Phillips.
Oh,
now married to Wendy Phillips. Second person I met was Eli Zandman, who I still talk to at least once a year. You remember Eli, right?
yeah, no, honestly, kind of same. Like once a year, maybe once every year and a half.
And then I met Max, my roommate, my first of many roommates, my freshman year. Hooray. Nothing wrong with Max. He was great. I wasn't. And then I met Katie.
Oh my goodness. So down in South Florida.
Yes.
And so what was that experience like?
Okay. So I went to private school from the beginning of school till the end of 8th grade. And then I went to public school, which was a culture shock unto itself.
Mm-hmm.
However, for those of you who have never lived in Florida, especially in the early or mid to late aughts, I guess you call them.
Mm-hmm.
I just call them 2000s. Yeah, it was a different world. When I saw Lynn, it was spring break. Nobody was there. Apparently everybody was down in Miami. There was one person sitting by the pool. I'm like, this isn't a party school. I can get a lot of work done here. It's really nice. I was wrong. Lynn, at least at the time, by the time I left, they were totally about education, cracking down on things. I mean, you have to admit that place was wild when we got there. Absolutely wild. Like on the weekends, people would throw shit out of the windows of the EML. Like toilet paper would go flying. And there was that guy Mike who liked throwing potato chips on my car every weekend.
You know, it's so funny that you say that like it was so wild, because my thing was maybe because I'm just so wild no matter where I'm located, but it took me until I left. Like I'm back home in NC to really be like, oh, like, do you know what I mean? It was almost like I was on autopilot or something. And I knew that it was weird, but I don't think I understood that like the environment was as weird and wild as it was until I removed myself.
I think that's because, and I mean this with love, you were a party animal and I was not. So I could see the things happening. And I grew to be a part of it. I was never like, ooh, every weekend. But I also had seen the other side of it before I got there. So I was able to recognize that this shit was crazy. You remember Rich? He was only there for like 3 months until he got kicked out.
I'm more of like, I know like faces, so I'm sure I do, but.
Rich was the blonde guy with the cast who got into a fight like a day and a half before he got to Lynn and got thrown off a porch and broke his leg.
Maybe like vaguely. I mean, you'd think that would be like absolutely, but
no. So, I mean, there were people like Rich. There were people who I'm not going to name that we both know, who definitely had cocaine in their mini fridge.
Mm-hmm.
Never did it. I'm just saying I happen to know that. I mean, there was Kim, who, you remember Kim? Kim, who pretty much, I think, banged Neil every night for months on end.
Dude, I'm dead.
I remember everything. It's a gift, and
It's almost like, and for like the other like reflecting of like you were the party girl. It's like for me, I feel like for obviously those who have no idea what we're talking about, it's like Matt was the guy that was always kind of there. Yeah, I guess just observing. He was just always like, "What's up, Matt?" Like outside with the cigarette smokers, not smoking cigarettes, but he was like am I explaining this correctly?
Same thing happened in high school. I got invited to everything. I don't know how I got invited to all these things, but like I'd just be in my room and magically I'd be in Tom and Vinny's room and Angel would come in and start a fight with Meredith. That's my dog. Hang on.
Oh my goodness, what a flashback.
I
Yes.
can't stay with you right now. Meredith and Vinny would have a fight. They'd all walk out and I'd be the only person sitting in Vinny's room going, how did I wind up here? I don't even think they noticed that I was there some of the time. They just continued on their life. And that's why I'm so good at reading people now, right? Like people always say I should have been a counselor, and I probably should have. But people tell me things. I'm an avid fan of strip clubs. And unprompted, like the girls who I know who work there, I become friends with most of these girls. Like we hang out. One of my best friends is one of them. But like the new girls, they'll just come in and they'll just start talking to me and start telling me everything. I'm like, this is great. Why are you telling me all this? And they're like, oh, you're really easy to talk to. So I'm like, okay.
Well, yeah, and also too, I guess, I mean, granted, I feel like people randomly have said that to me throughout the years. Granted, not. Fun fact, I've actually never been to a strip club.
Katie Louise Black, you have to come to Chicago and I'll have to take you to a strip club.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, like I said, obviously we're going all over 20 different directions. But I will say real quick, the whole like, hey, like I guess just because you just look like a good kid and you're innocent, so I feel like people usually, there's nothing to lose confiding in you, I guess.
That's true.
Before South Florida, where did you grow up / where were you born?
I've lived in Chicago my whole life. I mean, a suburb for 10 years, but Chicago. I went to Francis Parker until the end of 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Still friends with a large majority of the people from there. I dropped Christmas presents off there every year for the remaining teachers.
Oh,
It's easier to keep track of because they keep retiring. So I went to Deerfield for high school. Freshman year, I was me. Sophomore year, somehow, and I don't know how to this day, I became friends with the goth group. I never painted my nails black. I hate the smell of nail polish. But they really
embraced you?
Huh?
Embraced you kind of or something?
Yeah, it was really weird because I know most of them didn't want to, and I became friends with this lone guy. And he slowly just brought me into the group. And look, from like probably 6th grade until sophomore, junior year of high school, I only wore khakis and polos and Hawaiian shirts. Unless it was summer and I'm at camp and I'm running around in shorts. I can't do that anymore because of him. Because of him, I developed my own sense of style. My style is literally jeans and a t-shirt. Drove my parents crazy because I'd want to wear jeans and a t-shirt everywhere. They're like, part of my family comes from money, so they'd be like, you cannot wear jeans and a t-shirt to the country club. Really wanted to. And they brought me in and I became friends with a large majority of them. Sad to say, a large majority of them did not make it.
Well, I just want to say, I feel like that, unfortunately, is a running theme throughout the country of our generation.
Oh, I guess I'm not going to mention his name, but he died of an opiate overdose. He got a bad batch. My friend who brought me in there. I know we've lost some people from Lynn that should still be here right now. So I got hooked on painkillers. I'm going to be a total open book.
No, I appreciate it.
After sophomore year of college, I hurt my back.
Mm-hmm.
You saw me walking around with a cane.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
how'd you hurt it real quick?
Well, I had a bad back for years, and I went to lift something in my car, and I just went, my back just went,
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up just throwing it out. That was the day Jesse Wiles and I were going across the state to Naples for spring break, or I guess at least a weekend. Um, so I wound up in the ER in Naples, and they gave me painkillers and off to the races. And I was a functioning addict.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Never had any problem getting any work done or anything, but it was clear that I was also slightly drugged out. I gained a bunch of weight, partly due to that, and partly because the cafeteria food at Lynn was
Lit.
fattening.
Yeah.
Holy crap! Thank you, Jackson on grill. Um,
I am dying. Oh my gosh. Well, obviously I appreciate
Jackson
you.
on grill, Lydia on sandwiches.
No, that place was anything you could kind of want, but also to give yourself, I mean, I know, understand you're talking about a pill addiction, but give yourself a break. You're in college, you know?
Yeah. I got out of college. I graduated. Left, came back, but between the time I left and came back for grad school, I worked for a marketing company, and I ran an office for them in the middle of bumfuck nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And one night I'm sitting in. I lived in a motel for 3 months because I couldn't find a place to live out there. Um, Great having housekeeping. No, it's fantastic. And one night I was sitting there and I was depressed, seriously depressed. I never drank like to excess. I'd have like a shot or two and be done. Um, One time I've been drunk in my entire life. I'm not going to do that again. But I was sitting there and I remember I'm watching Pawn Stars, and it's the episode where it's weird what you remember about these things, but it's the episode where the guy brings in like the nuclear key that he somehow retrieved from a base somewhere and he wants to sell it to him. And I'm just sitting there, something just clicked in my head. And I got up and I flushed the entire bottle of pills down the toilet. And I went cold turkey from there. Um,
Did you withdraw?
Not to the extent that you would think that I would, but it was still pretty sucky. I mean, I gained even more weight while I was living in that town. And if you saw me, were you there from like end of 11 until 13?
Mm-hmm.
You
Well,
were.
ironically, so my story is undergrad, went there for grad school, and then came back home, I want to say from like for like a year. So end of 2011 to 2012. And then I went back down again. So kind of, sort of.
Why would you punish yourself by going back? No. I made it to grad school, lived in 3 different places. One had 2 crazy roommates. One had a roommate that I never met ever. The guy rented out rooms in his apartment, and his girlfriend lived there as well. I
Mm-hmm.
knew his girlfriend. I knew the guy from Puerto Rico who lived there. He moved out in the middle of the night, and I came home. I woke up the next morning, and he was gone. And I never actually met the guy who rented me the room. I only ever met his girlfriend. I have no idea what he looks like at all. All I know is his name was Anthony, not Ruggiero. Um,
Shout out.
um, but I then moved into my own place finally, and I lived right across. Okay, so Boca Raton Mall, Blue Martini,
Mm-hmm.
a moat, my apartment. So I could see Blue Martini from my apartment. So I saw all of you running to Blue Martini every night. I didn't start losing the weight until I graduated from grad school, and I came back and I kept looking at myself in the mirror and I said, well, okay, so I beat the painkillers. Why can't I beat this? And I was like, okay. So I cut out all red meat from my diet. I was still living with my parents, so my mom kept trying to give me hot dogs. I'm like, no, no, I can't eat hot dogs anymore. No. Um, I dropped my first 15, I weighed like 208 at that point, which according to doctors was obese. I was actually turning pre-diabetic. Um, First 15 or 20 pounds was like, my body was like, what are you doing? Like, what? Eat more. And then my body got to about 185 and it just went, oh, you care again. Okay. And then my weight just went boom. And I started dropping like flies.
So wait,
Got
so because I'm obsessed with weight, which is probably my addiction thing. But like, so you're saying that it was slow to drop off like 20 pounds or so, and then at some point you plateau, and then at some point you just keep going.
my body just went, oh, you care again. Okay, let's kick the metabolism back up for the
Mm.
first 7 years. And I just kept dropping weight. And I finally, after like 10 years, 13 years, just got a new suit because my suit looked like I was shrinking into it. It's like The Grudge when like the girl disappears, when Amber Tamlin
Yeah.
disappears into the hoodie. That's what wearing clothes was like for me for the longest time. I got to be about 158, 154. And then they changed my anxiety meds, which I'll get to.
Mhm.
And I got sick in August. Now, when you get sick, you drop a little weight and you gain it back. It's just what the body does. Mine never came back. I thought I had stomach cancer. I swear to God, I thought I was dying. And they're like, oh no, the new anxiety meds are also weight loss drugs. And I was like, were you going to tell me that? So now I'm down to 130. Actually, as of this morning, 128. Weighed myself this morning. So technically, I've lost 78 pounds, give or take. I'm a twig
That's
now.
wild. But yes, I mean, do you like
I'm
it?
less. I'm very happy. It's not like impacting my health or anything. I just and even if I try to put on weight, I can't. Like I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna eat a piece of cheesecake finally. Then I'll sit there and go, God, I shouldn't have done that. And I'll wake up the next morning, I'll be the exact same weight. And it's ridiculous. I am very happy. I'm actually skinnier than I was when I got to college. And you've seen that photo of me holding a bagel in the cafeteria, which is a terrible photo, but I digress. I'm skinnier than that. And
Do you feel like this is where you want to be with your weight?
I probably want to put on like 5 pounds just to not be in the 20s.
Mhm.
But I mean, I'm happy with it, really. It's not affecting my health. They've checked because I'm like, are you sure this isn't like terrible for me? They're like, no, you're fine. Um,
But wait, going back,
okay.
because, like I said, this is how I do interviews a lot, but I appreciate, like I said, I'm not having to ask too many questions.
No, I just like, no, 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 no,
No,
no.
I love it. Well, because for those that don't know, I mean, I haven't seen you in, what did we say, 8 years?
Yeah.
So going back to your painkiller addiction, at what point sometimes ask people this, like, at what point are you like, this is an issue?
I think I always knew it was an issue.
Like from the
Well,
jump?
probably about a year in
Mm-hmm.
when they just kept prescribing them to me. Like, maybe we should do something else. And they're like, no, just keep taking these. Um, I had a great couple chiropractors down in Florida, great guys. But I just kept getting prescribed more and more Vicodin. I never had a general care down there, so I just always end up going to the ER. I actually grew to know the people who worked at the Delray Medical Center, ER, because of the amount of people. I somehow also, not only for me, I became the guy who drove everybody to the hospital because they didn't want to pay for a $5,000 ambulance ride. Brian Brodniak burst a blood vessel in his eye doing an eating contest at Lynn, and I drove him to the ER. Amanda Hochberg, her tonsils started welling up and she could barely breathe. I ended up driving her to the ER. My ex-girlfriend wound up in the ER with ulcers, and we hadn't talked forever. And then she ended up asking me to drive her to the ER because I guess her then current boyfriend couldn't do it for some reason. And then while I was there, I ended up finding another person that I know whose boyfriend couldn't make it because of reasons. So I ended up staying with both of them, running back and forth. That was also the night that a crazy woman stripped down to nothing. And now Boca Raton ER, their ERs, at least it was a giant circle.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I'm just sitting there talking to Monique, and I see this shriek run by. And I'm like, what the hell was that? And all of a sudden, you see 35 paramedics running after this woman, butt naked, and she's just running around the circle repeatedly. And finally, I yelled out the door and I said, guys, one of you go the other way. And they looked at me and they're like, oh shit, why didn't we think of that?
Can you share like the wildest story concerning Lynn that you
Okay.
experienced?
Wildest story. Trying to think. Okay. Were you with us tonight, Vinny? The only time Vinny and Angel dragged me to Miami?
Mm-mm.
At Meredith, and I haven't thought of her. Danielle. Do you remember Danielle?
Oh
Boston
my gosh,
girl.
yes.
Point is, I got dragged to Miami. Uh, there's, I want you to imagine this picture. Very, very skinny white Jewish kid with a very muscular Puerto Rican guy, a very, very tall African American guy, and then Vinny. He's lost a lot of weight, but at the time he was a big guy. And Meredith, and they throw me in the car, and they're like, drive, because I'm the only one with a car. So I drove down to Miami. First thing we do is that they decide that we're going to go to a nightclub. Nightclub is closed. Fine. Then Angel gets it in his head that he's going to go to UCLA, or not UCLA. What's the university? Miami.
Hmm.
University of Miami. No, we didn't drive 3,000 miles and go to UCLA. Go to Miami University and track down this girl he knows.
Jesus.
Miami University is large, larger than FAU, which
Mhm.
is pretty goddamn big. We spent 3 hours trying to find this girl's room. It did not happen. So then Angel gets it in his head. We're going to go to another nightclub. And I said, fine, just whatever. He brings me to a nightclub in the middle of a junkyard. And I walk in there, and it's now midnight. There are guard dogs because it's a junkyard all around with fences and Rottweilers and Dobermans and barking and everything. I walk in there. I am the only white guy in that entire club. And have you ever seen Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
I mean, it's been years.
Okay, think about it. So Pee-wee walks into like the biker bar, and the music stops. The bikers stop. They all just stare and look at him. That is the exact same thing that happened in this club. Everybody just stopped. The music stopped, and they all looked at me. I went, I'm going to go sit in the car. I was
No,
in the car.
you left.
I had to. I sat in the car for 3 hours. I slept. It was kind of nice. But they come back to the car. Can we please go home? No, we're going to one more nightclub. We go to the nightclub. It's closed. Why is it closed? Take a guess, because it's Miami. Why do you think it's closed?
It got shut down?
Sort of. They were closed temporarily because 3 people got shot and killed there the night before.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I was like, I had it. I'm like, guys, either you get in the fucking car right now or I'm leaving you. And then we drove back to Lynn. And we never spoke of that together as a group ever again. Ever.
It was a one-time thing.
Yeah, I never partied with Tom and Vinny again in Miami. I don't like Miami. Miami is crazy. Miami, unless you're on South Beach, Miami is just streets peppered with various nightclubs. There's nowhere to like stop. At least there wasn't back then. There's nowhere to like eat. All the restaurants are like in hotels or in South Beach. There's nowhere to walk. So you're either in a car or you're at a building. And Miami's just, California is more my style. Like I want to live in Santa Monica. That's my thing. That's fantastic. Miami, ooh, danger, danger. Will Robinson, danger.
Mhm.
Yeah.
As I go in a month. But no, I mean, I agree, and I think that God, in 10 years, I think it's gotten worse. But
How? Why? Never mind. Cannot imagine going to Miami. I can imagine going back to Lynn. I mean, I was there briefly. I went down there. Do you remember Jordan Calk?
say the name again.
Jordan Calk.
Again, I'm better with faces.
He got married in January, and I flew down there for 19 hours, and I went to the wedding. But I stopped by Lynn, and the cafeteria is gone. It's a whole new building. I love visiting Lynn. Not a whole lot of people were there because by the time I got there, it was like 4 o'clock on a Friday. But some of the cafeteria staff was still there, and they tackled me because they were so happy to see me. And I looked over at all the students, and they were like, "Who the hell is this? Why is the cafeteria staff mobbing this poor guy?"
Oh, that's awesome, though. That's a cute story.
Valencia and Marie were still there. Do
Oh.
you remember? Valencia was the one that wouldn't stop giggling. She's the
Mhm.
one with the big smile. And then Marie was the one who didn't speak a word of English, but she said, no, no. And that was my bad Marie accent. Sorry, Marie, if you ever watch this. Um,
Well, like I said, Zoom is clocking me, so I've got about 9 minutes, and obviously, I feel like we've only kind of touched the
we're
iceberg.
logging right back on after this. Like Zoom's gonna kick us off. Like, and we're back.
But so at what point were you like, I'm out of here, Florida? What year was that?
Oh, I knew as soon as I was done with grad school, I was gone. I had no desire to stay down there. And I knew what was going to happen, and it has happened. The majority of the people that we knew are gone. They just did not stay down there. I mean, there's a few people like Renee and Anthony, they still live down there. I think Jesse Kopp may still live down there.
Mhm.
Not sure. And then the teachers, but I mean, they retire after a while. There's not a lot of them left. There's a lot of new people that live. And I don't think I know I made the right decision, especially when I mean I was friends with the majority of the teachers and the staff, but I was really close with Steve Aiello, and because there was an 80s, 70s, and 80s dance club there, they still have it. It's called Platforms, and when we went there, I was the only person under the age of 50 there with whoever I brought, and I'd always run into Steve, or he was an English and acting teacher. And he always used to say, "What the fuck are you doing here?" And we ended up having a few drinks together, and we became friends. And he passed a couple years ago, and I can't imagine me going down there for more than like 2 or 3 days, just because people I know are slowly either out of there or out of here. So it's not. I mean, it was a great learning experience. It made me who I am. Thank you. No, but
But I
I,
get that. I mean, same.
I can't imagine. I mean, be honest. Am I different than I was when I got down there from what you remember?
I mean,
No.
no, no.
Thank you.
I
Glad
just
I
feel.
haven't evolved in 17 years. Thank you.
Well, I mean, of course, I'm sure you are, but I mean, obviously, it's almost just, and I have this with random people too, where it's like I haven't talked to in so long, but I feel like maybe I haven't seen you in a year. That's what I mean. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you look exactly the same. Exactly the same. Actually, before we started recording, I mentioned to Katie that her background in her like room ceiling looks exactly like her dorm room freshman year. Exactly. And I'm like, do you still live in the dorms? Do you still live in DeHornley? Up in the corner of DeHornley on the top level. I mean, do you still room with Kristen?
Can you imagine? I'm like, hey, Kristen. No.
So what else do you want to know as the clock clicks down on this video one of the eight?
Well, so many questions I could ask. Like I said, we'll have to do a part two, but I love to ask people if they've ever seen a ghost.
No, but I've had one
Weird experience.
experience, like legitimately weird experience. I was in 8th grade, and fell asleep in my bedroom, and it's a lucid dream, and it's whatever, and then the dream cuts out, and I told my niece this, and she thinks I'm nuts. She's the only one who believes me, but everybody else thinks I'm nuts. But um, all I heard, complete blackness, was "Beware of graduation day," and then I wake up. Now, when I say I heard "Beware of graduation day,"
It was as clear as day.
it was, if I'm laying in bed, it is directly next to my right ear.
Mhm.
And I thought, I don't know, my sister was screwing with me or something. And I wake up, nobody's there. And it has made me paranoid for every graduation day that I have ever taken part of, whether it's mine or somebody else's. I'm on edge at every single graduation I go to because I'm like, somebody or something said that to me. And I know how crazy that sounds. But yeah, I mean, I thought I had a ghostly experience, which took 13 years to confirm that it wasn't. I used to go to a bar called CJ Arthur's, not there anymore. And I drive home late at night, and I'd always see this red streak running down the road as I drove home, and then he'd just vanish. And for years, I could not figure it out. Hell, I researched this. I'm like, did somebody die in like a red jumpsuit or something? Like, what's happening? And then in 2019, I'm driving home on the same route. Even CJ's not there anymore. I just happen to be over there. But it's daytime. And all of a sudden, I see this dude in a red tracksuit running down the exact same path that I've always seen him on, except he doesn't look like he's a dead dude. He doesn't look like he's a ghost. It just looks like a dude. And I'm like, that's the dude that's been running for the past 20 years. So beyond that,
Dude, wait, also to Chicago. So obviously I'm obsessed with the unexplained and all that stuff. So have you ever heard of Resurrection Mary?
of course,
Yes. Okay, I'm obsessed with that story from Unsolved Mysteries like 30 years ago. So like
that show scared the shit out of me.
mhm.
Robert
That
Robert Stack. Like, I remember I caught one episode of that when I was like really, really young, and it involves some homeless guy murdering some woman in an alley. That thing scared the crap out of me for years. Like, I refused to talk to homeless people for at least 6 years because I'm like,
my
yeah,
God.
I was terrified. Um,
And by the way, we are going to talk until it literally cuts me off, okay? Anything
uh,
you can share about Resurrection Mary? Like, have you tried to go see her? What's the word on
no,
the street?
I believe in the supernatural, but I also don't want to fuck with it. Um, it's kind of my view on religion. I don't believe in heaven or hell, but I do believe that we're all just kind of around even after death. I don't want to, like, I don't screw with Ouija. Like, I don't believe that a Ouija board can contact the other side. That's,
Well, real quick, I'm obviously into all of that, but I will never touch a Ouija board.
you know, I mean, I don't do
I
that.
will
I
never
refuse
touch a
to
Ouija
either
board.
because
Wait, another weird thing that, of course, here towards the end, but so in the last few years, especially the last 6 months, I picked up that I'm like clairvoyant, and so sometimes it checks out, and sometimes it doesn't. So the last like several minutes as I'm talking to you, I hear Tommy.
Tommy.
Is there any connection to a family member or friend?
Okay, so I mean, there was a Tommy, but okay. So as you know, I'm a Power Ranger fan. Jason David Frank ended up killing himself. Jason David Frank played Tommy. It's weird that you mentioned Tommy because I'm a nerd and I always happen to carry this with me because it's also good as a fidget spinner. It's not his, but it's from the show. I use this.
Very cool.
So, I mean, that's just random that you bring up the name Tommy. I mean, that's the only Tommy I could think of. The only other Tommy,
Well, I guess it's when I say this to people, it's however you right off the bat, just like that, connect to it.
of course. I mean, sitting next to me right now is also him. But that's just okay. I'm a little spooked. Doesn't
Oh,
thank you. Thank you. Now I get to go.
what's a good vibe? It's just confirming that, like, you know,